The number is, as usual, 888-727-BECK, 888-727-BECK. Love to have you along for the ride. I want to bring up something that is just an amazing happening that's going on in this in our country. I want to bring this up because it's really important. I want to bring up entitlements. First of all, it's a misnomer. They're not really entitlements. And by the way, if you're over on the webcam and it went dead, go back, joetalkshow.com, click on it again. It appears to be up and running again. Okay, and that'll be up for the entirety of the program. Calling handouts and free stuff, calling them entitlements is a misnomer. Nobody is entitled to my money. I don't even think the government's entitled to my money. If I could, I would pay zero taxes. As it is, I pay a ton of money in taxes. Okay? Nobody's entitled to my money. Nobody's entitled to your money. Yet, for some reason, we call things like SNAP, food stamps, unemployment, welfare, Medicaid, we call them entitlements, as if people are entitled to them. You know what we're entitled to? I think we're entitled to Medicare and Social Security because we pay into them. I think we're entitled to them. But the other ones that I just mentioned, we're not entitled to them. You're not entitled to a free place to live, Section 8 housing. You're not entitled to free electricity. That's ridiculous. You're not entitled to your kid having a free breakfast and lunch in school. I wanted to talk about entitlements. There's a story on theblaze.com from yesterday showing a chart that actually outlines how dependent Americans have become on quote-unquote entitlements. This is from Beckett Adams. The Senate Budget Committee, Republican staff under ranking member Jeff Sessions, Republican from Alabama, on Wednesday released a depressing chart. Over 110 million people in the United States are currently receiving some form of government welfare. You notice I didn't say American citizens. I said over 110 million people in the United States are currently receiving some form of government welfare. Now, provided the census also counted illegals, and it probably did a pretty good job of that, you're talking about more than 1/3 of the population of this great country is receiving some sort of a handout, free stuff from the government. Now, the government doesn't make stuff, doesn't have money. They get that from us. So in other words, 110 million people are getting some of your money and mine. That's the way it goes, and we're just supposed to accept it. I don't think so. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine that when you and I were growing up? I'm 46 years old. Now, first and foremost, let's get something out of the way. If you're in this country illegally, if you made a conscious decision to break the law, break the border of the United States of America, shirk aside the sovereignty of the United States of America, decide for yourself to come across the border illegally to reap the benefits of this great land, and now you're getting an entitlement, that is sick in so many different ways I can't even begin to tell you. I believe in immigration. I believe in legal immigration. I believe that if the entirety of the population of Mexico or Canada wanted to move here tomorrow, they should be able to, provided they do it legally. And certainly there's got to be a reform in how people do that. But let's just get them right off the bat. That's horrible, illegal, underhanded, dastardly, and anybody who is allowed to get, quote-unquote, entitlements or free stuff from you and me after having already broken the law, that tells me there's a major problem in the federal government in how they enforce our immigration laws, and that's got to be changed. Now let's focus on those who are here legally and focus on people who are American citizens. I'm 46 years old. I graduated high school in 1984. I remember seeing kids who had free lunch. They had a card. I never had free lunch. We weren't well-to-do when I was growing up, but my father worked his face off. My mother worked a job until such a point that she didn't have to anymore because my dad became a success. And then when I got old enough, I paid $50 a week, $50 a week, $200 a month to live in my parents' house. It was the right thing to do. I contributed. Before I graduated in school, I had friends who wore jeans that weren't as nice as some and had shirts that obviously were hand-me-downs. I remember them having the free lunch card. And I also remember that they weren't proud of it. You know, they had to eat lunch, and the parents were in a position where they just couldn't afford to send the kid to school, with, 75 cents, $1 a day, whatever it was for lunch back in the 1970s and 80s. And because of that, because they were struggling, they got the free lunch program. But the objective always was to not have to have that card anymore. You know what I mean? The objective was to not have to be on that quote-unquote entitlement, to not have that handout. Because it was embarrassing. It was embarrassing to have to get something free. You'd rather be like the other kids and be able to buy your own lunch and, maybe one day have a new shirt and some new sneakers. It was embarrassing to not be able to. But that was the plight of some people. I understood that. We felt for them, and we knew that they wanted to do better. At the same time, if the family was collecting food stamps, that was for a minimum amount of time possible. The family was embarrassed that they were on food stamps. They didn't want to be on food stamps. And food stamps were made to look embarrassing. They were big and gaudy looking, and everybody waiting in line at the grocery store knew you were paying with food stamps. Last thing you wanted to do was stay on them. You wanted to get off of them. So people worked as hard as they could to get off the food stamps. They worked as hard as they could so that their kid didn't have to get a free lunch anymore in school with that card that was like a scarlet letter. Unemployment, if you ask somebody what they did for a living back in the day, and they didn't have a job, they were on unemployment, they didn't say, I'm collecting unemployment. No, what they said was, I'm between jobs. But I've got 3 or 4 appointments tomorrow. I've got interviews next week. I'll be back on my feet in no time. I need to be back at work. I need money in my pocket. I need spending cash. Got to buy a new car. Got to do whatever. I'm between jobs. Nobody was proud to be on unemployment. Today, people appear to be proud to be on unemployment. It's weird. Disability was actually for people who were disabled. Today, you go on disability if you've got a hangnail or carpal tunnel. There's a change in the mindset in this country. A change in the mindset that just befuddles me. It confuses me. Because it used to be that you were embarrassed to take that handout. You took it because you needed it. And then you did everything you could to not need it anymore so that you could in turn help out somebody else who was in that position to get them back on their feet. I'm not against programs to help people in need, to get you from point A to point B, as a bridge between that job and this job. But I am completely 100% against people being proud of it. At some point, we've got to reinstill embarrassment in people who are on quote-unquote entitlements, who are getting free stuff. I'll tell you how we do that, and I'll tell you how we stop handing people free stuff. 110 million people in this country are getting free stuff on your sweat and your hard work, on my sweat and my hard work. They're getting free stuff on us, and the government wants them to think they're owed it, that they deserve it, and that they should be proud of it. I'll tell you a little way that we could change that just a little bit by tweaking some things when we come back. Joe Pags in for Glenn Beck. This is the Glenn Beck Program. 888-727-BECK, 888-727-BECK. Joe Pags in for Glenn Beck today. The number is the same, 888-727-BECK. At the end of the day, you should be embarrassed if you're on these quote-unquote entitlement programs. I always get a kick out of people, and a kick in not such a positive way, out of people who are on unemployment. They'll call my shows because I'll light people up for being on unemployment. I think it's ridiculous that Republicans and Democrats alike have said, yeah, unemployment should last for 2 years. You should be able to get unemployment insurance for 2 years. A couple of things are important. Number one, you, the employee, didn't pay a dime into unemployment. You do not pay for unemployment insurance. The employer does. Those of you who call programs like this and say, I paid in, I ought to get it back. No, you didn't pay in. You didn't pay a dime. Your employer did. And by the way, what your employer paid in for you for unemployment insurance ran out a long time ago. Have you seen the federal deficit? Have you seen our debt? It's because we're paying people for not working way past any money we would have had in any sort of a bank account for them. It's gone, and it's been gone for a long time. But I love when people call in and say, I'm on unemployment because, I've got a PhD, or I'm a rocket scientist, or I'm an HR expert, and I just can't find a job in my field. Hey, Sparky, who told you that you were entitled to a job in your field? Well, why should I? I went to school and I paid my college loans off and I did this and I was successful and I drive a BMW and I've got a house and I got this and the kids. Why would I take a job that's beneath me? Let me ask you a simple question. What's more beneath you? sitting at home and collecting a paycheck for doing nothing. Collecting some of my money for free. Is that more beneath you, or is it more beneath you to get up off your ass and go do something and actually earn the paycheck? You're telling me flipping burgers is more beneath you than you getting a free check in the mail for doing nothing. Really? How are we put together in this day and age? Have we no self-esteem? Do you really think you're owed that money? You're not. Further, let me go back to food stamps for a second. You know what? If you're getting food stamps, use it for a finite amount of time and then get rid of it. By the way, unemployment should run out in 6 months, period. 6 months, you're on unemployment for half a year. If you can't find a job doing something by then you're the idiot. You should be embarrassed to be on unemployment for any longer than 6 months. 6 months, I couldn't even imagine being on it for that long. I've never been on unemployment in my life. Am I lucky or just an idiot that'll take any job? I think it's probably answer B. So cut off unemployment at 6 months. Food stamps, 6 months max. Have a nice day. What do you mean? My kids have to eat. All right, go and get some employment and buy them food. Further, if you're on food stamps, it should be a big, ugly, fluorescent pink stamp. It should not be a card that looks like a Visa card that you swipe when you're checking out at the grocery store. It should be fluorescent green or pink, and everybody should know that you're on food stamps, because that will be the impetus for you to get off of food stamps. You don't want to be embarrassed by it, don't be on them. You're not required to be on food stamps. Oh, further, if you're on food stamps, your kid doesn't get a free lunch at school. What? Why not? Because we just bought you food, stupid. Buy peanut butter jelly and a loaf of bread. Make it, put it in a brown bag, and send your kid to school with it. So in other words, you want me to make sure I understand. You want me to buy your food, and then you want me to buy your kids some prepared food at school. So free breakfast, free lunch, and all the free food you can buy at the store too? Why do you get to double dip? You should be embarrassed that you're doing that. That should be embarrassing to you. Oh, also, no prepared food with the food stamps or the in Texas they call it the Lone Star card. No chips, no sugary sodas either. You can buy some water, maybe some Kool-Aid that you could mix up yourself, but you can't buy prepared sugary sodas. Yeah, I think there should be limitations on what you can buy. Period. It's that simple. If you don't like it, don't be on food stamps. And again, if you're on food stamps, use them to buy your kids some food and feed your children. Oh, and if you're on food stamps and you have a PlayStation 3, sell it and then buy your kids some food. Oh, and if you've got cable internet, really high-speed internet, turn it off, use that money every month to buy your kids some shoes and get dial-up, or don't use the internet. It's not a requirement. If you got a big screen TV, sell it. Sell it. Use that money to buy your kids some food. Maybe get yourself a 19-inch TV until you can afford a bigger one. If you're rolling in an SUV and you've got a car payment, sell it. Use that car payment money every month to buy your children food or to pay the electric bill. Or if you're rolling on Dubs, that's 22-inch big chrome rims for those who don't know, sell them, get some normal rims, and use the profits to buy your kids some food and maybe pay the electric bill. I know that's crazy. People think that they're entitled to have a brand new car and get their hair and nails done and have gold chains around their neck and then get food stamps and then have their kids get free food in school too. Food stamps, 6 months and then you're off. Unemployment, 6 months, then you're off. Oh, by the way, if you're getting disability pay and you can text or drive a car or talk on the phone or walk out to check your mail, no more disability pay for you. Go to work. Why is that so hard to understand? Now, again, I am not against people getting help when they need it. We are the most charitable people on planet Earth. The planet has never, ever, ever, never, 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 ever seen a more charitable people than the American people today and throughout our history in this country. We, of course, will help you up when you fall down. We, of course, will give you motivation when you're depressed. We, of course, will give you food if you're truly starving. Nobody's truly starving here. If you've got all of these creature comforts because you think you are owed them because the next door neighbor has them, the next door neighbor earned them, you didn't. You don't deserve them. The first thing you need to do is feed your children. or don't have them. Pay your electric bill. Have transportation money. And then if there's anything left over, then you can go ahead and buy yourself some new nails. Or maybe buy yourself some gold earrings. Or maybe buy your kids a game system, or maybe you buy a TV. The idea that you're owed it or you're entitled to is an idea that just doesn't make sense. You know who's entitled to my money? I am. I did that. But for some reason, the government sucks it out of my paycheck, hands it to you, and you think that that's yours. I'm waiting for my check. No, you're waiting for my check. That just happens to be going to you today. We need to reinstill embarrassment that you're not achieving what you can. And let me tell you a little something about something. If you're on entitlements and you've made that a way of life for you, all the things that I've mentioned here, you have actually allowed yourself to be duped by the government. Oh, yeah. If you're not embarrassed about all that other stuff, you should be embarrassed by how you're being controlled by the government. I'll explain what I mean by that when we come back. All right? Joe Pags in for Glenn Beck. I believe my column is up on the Blaze. I'll tell you how to find it when we come back. Keep it right here on the Glenn Beck program. 888-727-BECK. Joe Pags in for Glenn. Yeah, I mean it in the nicest possible way when I say you should be embarrassed if you're stuck on entitlements. I really do mean that. Because you're not stuck on entitlements. You should be embarrassed because you get on an entitlement, you want to get off it as soon as possible. It is not something to be proud of. And what the government has done is they've whitewashed it enough to where you feel like you're owed it. First of all, you think it's your money. I paid taxes. I should get it back. Well, what? What? I paid into unemployment. I ought to get it back. No, you didn't. You're not owed anything. No, I take that back. You know what you're entitled to in this country? Equal opportunity to pursue life, liberty, and happiness. You are entitled to the rights afforded all of us by the Creator and protected by a wonderful document called the Constitution. You are not entitled to my money. You're not entitled to a percentage of my hard work. You're not entitled to free food. You're not entitled to free rent. You're not entitled to free electricity. You're not entitled to a free vehicle. You're not entitled to free anything. You're entitled to an opportunity to compete with me for the jobs that are out there. By the way, just as an aside, just got an email from Mike Apelka. I really appreciate it. The guys and gals over at theblaze.com, Mike especially, has put a link in the blog section. I was honored to play the national anthem the other night, Wednesday night in Houston, at the Houston Astros hosting the Washington Nationals game. I do morning radio in Houston. I do afternoons in San Antonio. Always an honor to be able to play the anthem. I've played it multiple times at the San Antonio Spurs games. And this was just a real great honor. And Mike has put up a link. Just go to theblaze.com and click on the blog link, and you scroll down a little bit, you'll see it. I wouldn't mind you going and checking it out. I had a great time doing that. Michael, thank you. Now, let me tell you what I mean when I say the government is using entitlements or handouts to control you. Here's what I mean. You have to understand, Republicans and Democrats, but especially liberals and socialists, believe that they know better than you do how you should live. They believe that they know better than you where you should work, how much money you should have or make, what form of transportation you take, what fuel you should use, what foods you eat, and how you should vote. They think that they know better than you where you should live, how much opulence you live in or don't. They believe they know where your kids should go to school, what your kids should eat. They believe they know better than you how your life should go. You've heard people say cradle to the grave. They want to control you. The government can control me to a certain extent. I have to pay taxes, and I pay a ton of money in taxes. I can't get out of that. Well, I can if I want to go to prison. I don't. So I pay my taxes. Beyond that, the government can't tell me what I can eat, what I can buy, what I can drive, what I can do. I have more freedom because I'm a man who makes his own money. You, by the way, have less freedom if you're accepting all these handouts. You think it's free. You think you're owed this money or that free food or your kid's free lunch or free breakfast, when in reality, is you're being controlled. You have given up a lot to get what you have coming in. That's why I say you should be embarrassed, because the biggest embarrassment is you're allowing this government to drag you around by your tail or by your nostrils or by some other term that I won't get into. You're allowing the government to decide for you how your life should go. The government is the only entity that gives you something like opportunity, like a chance to breathe and live, or water, or something to eat. Whereas you will never, ever, ever, never achieve the American dream to its fullest extent unless you become independent of that. If you accept a government handout and you make it part of your life forever and never let it sunset or end, you are telling the government, feel free to control me forever. I will do whatever you want, just don't cut off my check or my food stamps or my whatever. And I'm here to tell you, you can break away from that. And you can really stand up and be proud and stick your chest out and say, I'm going to compete. I'm going to try my best. I'm going to do better than that. I'm going to tell the government to keep that money. I don't need some handout. I'm better than that. 110 million people. This is epidemic now. This is epidemic. And you're allowing it to happen. Stop it. Try harder. I've got a bunch of cars right now. I love cars. Got more than one house. Like houses. Back in the day when I started in broadcasting, I had my car repossessed. You know, I'm an Italian guy, so as a requirement of being Italian, I had an IROC Z. Oh, yeah. No. When you're a young Italian guy, you have to have an IROC Z at some point. I had a brand new one, a 1989 IROC Z. Had it repossessed, I couldn't pay for it. Went and bought a piece of garbage for $600 that barely got me from here to there. I had beautiful saxophones. I'm a saxophone player. That's what I played the national anthem on the saxophone. You can check that out at theblaze.com/blog. You can go there and check it out there. I had the nicest saxophones ever made, and I sold them because I couldn't feed my wife, and we had, we're going to start a family soon. Couldn't pay my rent. Sold my saxophones. Got way less than they were worth. It was a horrible day for me, but I did what I had to do. I wasn't entitled to have them if I couldn't afford to eat. I wasn't entitled to have them if I couldn't afford to pay the electric bill. So I had a crappy car, didn't have any saxophones anymore, was trying to deliver pizzas on a motorcycle, which didn't make any sense. $4 an hour, driving uphill both ways with no shoes on. 52 miles to the radio station that paid me nothing, $4 an hour. Because I had a goal, I had a dream, I had ambition, I had drive, and I knew there was opportunity there if I tried hard. I'm not coming from a place where I was born with a silver spoon in my mouth and some trust fund. None of that happened. What I have, I've built. Much like what Glenn has, he's built. Drive, desire, and ambition. Those are all American traits that for some reason we've forgotten about. Drive, desire, and ambition. These are things that used to make this country tick. We hardly make things anymore. Over 100 million people on entitlements, and we wonder why we have a federal deficit that is unstoppable. Over $1 trillion again this year in deficit spending. The debt is going to be $16 trillion by the time this guy leaves office, provided he leaves office in January. And it's not going to stop. We've stopped being what America always was. The overachievers. The exceptional country. Exceptionalism is not only not bad, it's great. This government has convinced us that it's bad. And if you want to be exceptional, you're looking down at other people. No, you're rising yourself up. There's nothing wrong with that. Get off the entitlements. We need to make a sea change. Should Romney win the election, which is what I'm hoping, he needs to make a sea change in how entitlements are dealt with. Okay, we're not going to drop anybody off entitlements right now, but in 6 months from now and go, you're going to see no more unemployment. That's right. 6 months from now and go, no more food stamps. 6 months from now and go, no more free rent. I mean, seriously, you're getting free rent. You can't save enough money for first, last, and security? Having free rent for 2 years, 5 years, 10 years? Seriously, you're on food stamps and haven't bought any food at all for the past 2 years, and you don't have enough money saved up to go buy some food and get off the program? Seriously, you're on unemployment for 2 years and you haven't saved enough money or applied for enough jobs to where you can now have your own job? Seriously, if you're listening to me right now and you're on entitlements or you're getting a handout from everybody else, you need to be embarrassed by what you've allowed yourself to become. And if you're on entitlements or a handout because you really, really need it, God bless you. Do everything you can to get off it as soon as you can. 888-727-BECK. Your phone calls when we come back. Again, that blog is up, me playing the national anthem. I appreciate them putting it up. Maybe next hour I'll actually play it here on the program. Also, my blog, the posting about entitlements and about embarrassment is up at joetalkshow.com. Just click on the Pags blog. Love to hear your comments. Joe Pags in for Glenn Beck. This is the Glenn Beck program. All right, it's 888-727-BECK. One last thing here. A friend of mine wrote, Obama should be embarrassed because of the entitlements. They're not. They're not embarrassed. And you know what the best way to tell the government that they can't control you is? Get off the entitlements and tell them, I don't need your handout. I don't need your handout. I'll do it on my own. Thank you. Have a nice day. And then realize your real freedoms and liberties here in the country. Let me go to Dan, who's in Long Island, or on Long Island. Dan, I'm from Amityville originally. What's going on, my friend?
Hey, what's going on? I actually volunteer. I'm a mentor for a young kid on Long Island, and
great.
And the one thing I noticed about his mom is that she doesn't work. She really I guess she just lives off entitlements. Well, like you said, the handouts and it's kind of become a way of life. I mean, I've been mentoring him for over a year now, and she doesn't seem to, feel the need to work or do anything that would advance her situation. And I think you're right. It's not even that they're embarrassed about it, but it's just that it becomes a way of life because they know that check is rolling in every month. So, I even overheard a conversation of all her and her friends. They were talking about getting their cable paid for by the town, by like Suffolk or by one of their towns. And it was like, don't you guys, maybe want to go work?
Well, see, that was the idea, though, Dan. You have to understand. I appreciate the call. That was the idea. It's like, and I don't know who started this saying about cooking the frog. I have no idea who started that saying. But if you want to cook a frog, what's the best way? Slowly. You slowly increase the temperature until the water boils and the frog had no idea. If you throw the frog into the boiling water, it's going to jump right out. That's sort of what it's like a slow burn from the government. We're going to slowly get you hooked on entitlements, make you think that it's really yours to continue the power and control that we want to wield over you. Because, again, we're smarter than you are. You're just a dumb guy or dumb gal that we can control. Here's your unemployment. It's like a little carrot. They slowly and gradually, over decades now, since the time I was in school until now, over decades now, have convinced the American public that this is the way it's supposed to be. Thankfully, most of us still haven't fallen for it, but a lot of people have. And it makes me sad because those people will never achieve what they thought they would achieve when they were kids. That mother that he's talking about thinks that that's the only way she can get by. What am I supposed to do? How do I buy food? How do I pay my rent if I don't get my check? I don't know. Go to work? I know. Crazy. Let me go to Ken, line 1. Ken, what's going on? You're on the Glenn Beck program.
Yeah, I wanted to comment on the school lunches program.
I wish you would.
Yeah, well, I was taking my son to school from grade 1 to 6, and they kept handing me a slip of paper, said I had to fill it out to tell how much I'd make. And I told them I don't need any assistance with school lunches. They told me I have to fill it out. Well, in grade 7, I decided I'm not going to do that anymore. And they were quite puzzled and kind of upset that I wouldn't. And I quit doing it. So I pay full amount for school lunches. But it makes me wonder, how much does the government give that school for his name being on the list when once he's on the list, he pays $1.75 for a lunch?
It's a great question, and I appreciate you, man. Look, I will highlight more of that when we come back. Got emails on that, too, on the Glenn Beck program. Stay here. Have a lot to get to, and only about an hour left to do it. I appreciate a lot of the comments all of the comments that I've received on the Entitlement Rant. It just gets to me. It gets to me when you see a number like the Blaze put up yesterday. 110 million people in the United States receiving some sort of handout. It just makes me crazy knowing how hard so many of you work and how hard I work. It just makes me crazy. I just don't understand it. You know, and I've gotten such a flood of email from people saying, "Hey, you know, keep on saying it, keep on telling it. That's exactly how I feel. Thank you for making that great point." So on and so forth. Well, I appreciate that. If you want to read up about what I said, because somebody just emailed, "Hey, can I get a transcript?" Now, we don't do transcripts, I don't think. But you can read my position on this by going to joetalkshow.com, joetalkshow.com, and then on the left-hand side on the top, you'll see a link to Pag's blog. I wrote a blog about this, and I'd love to hear your comments on it. Go and check that out.